Call of Duty and Battlefield have had the biggest rivalry in gaming since the dawn of time. I'm talking a rivalry that's bigger than Captain Price and General Shepard, bigger than Gen Z and accountability. Okay, maybe not that big, but what if I told you 15 years ago that Battlefield would end up copying Call of Duty? You'd call me crazy. And what if I told you it would end up ruining the franchise? You'd tell me to shut the f. But here we are in 2026, because after Battlefield 6 Season 2, many players feel that Battlefield is heading down the same destructive path that ruined Call of Duty. And if they're right, this may be the final nail in Battlefield's coffin. So let's look into why from a COD player's perspective, and how the devs can stop history from repeating itself. By the way, make sure you buy some Battlefield coins, and don't forget to buy the Battle Pass so you can buy this immersive, colorful neon skin. I'm just kidding, relax. What the f was that? Tell me if this sounds familiar. You grow up playing a shit ton of the same game for years. You remain a loyal consumer and always look forward to the next release. But one day, that game just decides, you know what? I'm gonna f you over. Everything you once loved about the game is now ruined. So as time passes, you continue to hope and say, maybe next year. But it only ever gets worse. It gets to a point where you just accept defeat and realize that nothing will ever change. Now let's be honest. This scenario unfortunately relates to players across more AAA games than ever, but it especially hits home to COD players. We witnessed the franchise go from the greatness of COD 4 in 2007 to the disgrace of Black Ops 7 in 2026. That is a slow and painful death, and one that I wouldn't wish on my mother-in-law. The Call of Duty franchise started with a serious military theme, and ended up losing its identity to a bunch of goofy skins like Nicki Minaj and American Dad. It went from quality DLC packs to an overflow of overpriced microtransactions, battle passes, and garbage live service. The franchise has changed forever, and here's the scary part. Many players feel Battlefield is heading down that same exact self-destructive path. And ultimately, it comes down to Battlefield copying the Call of Duty formula. But in order to understand the Call of Duty formula, we have to go back to the origin, 2019. In 2019, Call of Duty entered a new era and rebooted the iconic Modern Warfare series. It felt like a much-needed revival to the franchise, and COD players were more hyped than ever. However, this quote-unquote revival meant a lot more than bringing back Captain Price, because little did they know, not only would COD fans reunite with Price, they'd very soon be paying the price. I'm sorry, I couldn't pass up a dad joke. You have to remember, at this time, Fortnite was the king and Call of Duty was the clown. Not that it still isn't, but you know what I mean. No one really cared for it anymore. So in order to revive the franchise, what did COD decide to do? Call of Duty copied the Fortnite model. Sounds awfully familiar if you're a Battlefield fan, right? But what does that ultimately mean? Well, many players claim Call of Duty copied Fortnite in two major ways. One being a pivot from a focus on 6v6 multiplayer to a focus on Battle Royale. And this is exactly what happened when Modern Warfare, the most controversial COD game ever, released in 2019. Although many COD players loved MW 2019, there were just as many, if not more, old school players who hated it. I'm talking loud elephant footsteps and no dead silence, other than a 15-second field upgrade. You move forward one step in that game, and you alert the entire enemy team. This caused matches to be slower than ever. Campers were at an all-time high, and a lot of the times, you wouldn't even reach the final score because everyone was too afraid to move. How about the garbage map design? Every single map was essentially built like a maze and enabled safe spaces for campers. Again, this slowed down matches a ton and made playing the game feel more like a chore than anything. Of course, this was other than Rust, Shoot House, and Shipment, the most overplayed maps, but I mean, what else are you gonna play on that game? Piccadilly? Euphrates Bridge? The map pool was from hell. And how could we forget about the door obsession? Even if they added classic maps like Vacant from COD 4 or Hard Hat from MW3, they would ruin them with doors. And when you run through these doors, it was like an elephant herd coming through. So to make it quieter, you would have to carefully open the door and crouch. But there was someone camping in the room with a claymore at the door, so it didn't even matter. With loud footsteps, garbage maps, and a concerning door fetish, Call of Duty had basically become a hybrid of COD and Rainbow Six Siege. It lost its identity and didn't know what the hell it wanted to be. A casual arcade shooter or a competitive milsim. Call of Duty multiplayer was changed forever, and Modern Warfare was only the beginning. Fast forward to March of 2020, in came the brand new Battle Royale Warzone. And here's where the Fortnite influence really comes into play. Call of Duty saw that Battle Royale was dominating the live service industry, so they hopped on the trend and ran with it. Let's not forget, they tried it first with Blackout, but Warzone marked the true beginning for three big reasons. One, Warzone would be free to play like other popular BRs like Fortnite, PUBG, and Apex Legends. Two, rather than being limited to looting weapons around the map like in Blackout, players would have the option to use their own loadouts if they loot enough cash. And 3, the Gulag enabled players to redeploy and quickly became an integral part of the mode. This made Warzone feel a little bit more unique than other popular BRs, and players became obsessed with creating the meta loadouts. And as Warzone grew in popularity at the height of the pandemic when everyone was online, there was no reason in Activision's eyes to not prioritize Battle Royale. Whether yearly COD releases got worse, they would still be bestsellers, and that has proven to be true even at its worst. But not only did Call of Duty hop on the Battle Royale trend, they started using the Battle Pass too. Before the Battle Pass, older COD games like Black Ops 2 would have a Season Pass. There were 4 DLC packs filled with brand new multiplayer and Zombies DLC maps. Each map pack was $15, but you could buy the Season Pass for $50, which would save you a little bit of money. You could also buy camo packs for $2, which also came with cool looking calling cards. But screw all that, bring in the Battle Pass. You get a new one every season, and you want to know the best part? You can earn items for free. That is unless you want the most valuable items. See a skin or a weapon you like? You can pretty much guarantee you're gonna have to drop some COD points on that one. Or you can upgrade to the Black Cell to get the best of the best for the lowly price of $30. Yes, the Black Cell costs nearly half the game itself. Not only do you get the Battle Pass with each new season, you get new, but probably recycled maps, new weapons, new events, and new game modes that could have been added day one. But here in the AAA industry, we love to drip feed content because we can also get away with the bare minimum while also maximizing profits off game sales. Isn't AAA live service great? And with that live service came a lot of goofy shit. It brought along Nicki Minaj, Snoop Dogg, Beavis and Butthead, American Dad, a rubber duck. Do I need to keep going? Gone were the days of default military soldiers fighting each other. Instead, we now have celebrities and cartoon characters in an ice skating competition. It's arguably the biggest reason why Black Ops 7 tanked, because the COD community overall was just completely done with it. So after the complete Fortniteification of the franchise, Call of Duty is now left with Battle Royale, the Battle Pass, goofy skins, and an overall broken identity. Now, if you're a Battlefield player watching this, you're probably crapping your pants, because you're afraid this is exactly what's happening to your favorite game, Call of Battlefield. Within just a few months, Battlefield 6 has lost over 80% of its players. It's a historic fall-off that the community fears the game will never recover from. But before we get into Call of Battlefield, feel free to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video and want to see Battlefield 6 not get f***ed over. Thanks guys, let's get back into the video. So first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the CODification of Battlefield 6. And I feel like I offer a unique perspective on this issue because although I am a longtime player of the COD franchise, I don't consider myself a Battlefield fanatic. Growing up on the Xbox 360, I would play the old Battlefield games on and off, but very rarely. From a young age, I was always drawn to Call of Duty, but I just never felt the same pull with Battlefield, and that's fine. I was one of those players who felt Battlefield was a walking simulator, you know? Walk 10 miles, die, repeat. I needed constant action, and that's what Call of Duty always offered. Nowadays, it's a little bit on the extreme side in terms of the constant action, but yeah, we already talked about that. Honestly, dude, I don't have as much say as all the longtime Battlefield fans. However, this is a video solely dedicated to those fans because as I just explained COD's downfall, believe me, I get it. As a disgruntled COD player, I understand the fear that surrounds the Battlefield franchise right now, and I want to voice those frustrations on behalf of those players before shit really hits the fan. We don't want to see that. And it's not like the Battlefield community hasn't had its ups and downs. I mean, Battlefield 5 and 2042 exist, but it looked like for a moment that Battlefield was really back, and we don't want to see it gradually slip back to a lower standard again. So let's shift to Battlefield 6's gameplay and its ties to Call of Duty. When it comes to movement, the community claims it feels too much like COD. In comparison to older Battlefield games, the movement feels way too fast in Battlefield 6, like you're playing against Sonic the Hedgehog on crack. And after going back to an older title like Battlefield 1, which by the way felt amazing, it definitely feels like movement has been sped up from those days. And even I will admit that there are times where the sliding and bunny hopping makes me want to chokeslam somebody.
They're all on the roof.
They're all on the roof being a bunch of bag. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Pretty much.
Dude, can I spawn? I spawned into fucking bullet. Alright, get me the fucking of course this fucking guy's in the back of the spawn. What the fuck?
At least that's how I was dying. I was able to shoot an RPG straight to his face.
That is good.
But the complaints about movement go back to the beta. I remember when players were complaining that COD streamers were ruining Battlefield 6. The streamers wanted faster COD-like movement, and the actual Battlefield community wanted to turn it down a notch. So the developers nerfed the movement, and the Battlefield community celebrated after dodging a massive machete like the one from the Black Ops 7 campaign. However, clearly whatever the devs did wasn't enough because players still are not too happy with the movement. Is it better than COD's movement? I mean, yeah, it's a breath of fresh air after being tortured on Black Ops 7, but it better be. You think I want to face nutdraggers on this game too? I'm playing this to get away from those bastards, but they want to follow me here too. But at the same time, Battlefield players aren't arguing that. They're just saying the movement can be better. Maybe it's a little too fast and the sliding is a bit much. Okay, so tune it down. I don't think that's a whole lot to ask for, and I am certainly in favor of making movement less brain rot and less COD-like. It reminds me of how much faster COD movement has gone over the years from where it started. I mean, even recently, going from Modern Warfare 2 to Modern Warfare 3 was a major shift. But imagine starting out on a game like World at War in 2008 and end up on a game like Black Ops 7 in 2026. It will drive you absolutely insane. Now, will Battlefield ever get to that level of movement speed? I doubt it because of its community, but if there's one thing I learned from Call of Duty, you can never count out your favorite game being ruined in new creative ways. But now let's shift to map design complaints. The maps overall have been criticized for being too small and too cluttered like COD maps. This makes gameplay feel way too fast, and that's where the CODification comes into play. Here's the thing though, I get why EA and the devs shifted gameplay to this new style. Remember, EA's biggest goal for Battlefield 6 was to achieve over 100 million players, so the reason why they're making the game feel more like Call of Duty is because they wanted to appeal to a wider audience. And honestly, it worked initially. EA saw that COD fans were quitting faster than men quitting the modern dating market, so what did they do? They outsold Call of Duty and became the best-selling FPS for the first time in forever. EA marketed the game extremely well, you gotta hand it to them, and it stole tons of COD players such as myself. And looking back, I do believe speeding up the gameplay with smaller maps made the transition to Battlefield feel easier, because although these maps are small to Battlefield players, they'd still obviously feel way bigger to COD players. So in Battlefield 6, the pace feels fast enough without becoming too overstimulating like on Black Ops 7. Ultimately, it was a breath of fresh air to COD players such as myself who were beyond tired of the Omni movement lords. But here's the most painful part. When it comes to maps, Battlefield players are experiencing exactly what COD players went through. I mean, Call of Duty went from classic maps like Standoff, Raid, and Firing Range to now recycling them every other year because the new original maps blow. We'll wait a whole year to get garbage maps like Border Crossing. No, I still cannot believe that map was allowed to be released. I bet you could take the best map on Battlefield 6, which would probably be either Eastwood or Siege of Cairo, and it still would be considered average on the older Battlefield games. That seems to be where both Battlefield and Call of Duty are at right now. What's funny about this is Battlefield 6 in 2042 seem to have the complete opposite problems with maps. In Battlefield 6, the maps feel too small and cluttered to players. In Battlefield 2042, the maps felt large but not enough cover to protect themselves in open areas. But at the end of the day, the core Battlefield community simply wants larger and more open maps, so that I understand. Now before we move on from gameplay, I also want to talk about how it feels like everyone is playing Battlefield 6 like they're playing Call of Duty. Here's what I mean by that. Everyone's right next to me, they refuse to revive. I'm right here, I'm right here, I'm right here, I'm right here. It runs right past me like a kid. Can we get like engineers? Anyone want to play the objective? No, it's... Oh my gosh, can revive me. Why are you looking there? So fucking random, he locks right in on me. Oh my gosh, let me fucking spawn in a place where I'm not gonna get shot at immediately. Sake. So there's 4 classes, right? Assault, Support, Engineer, and Recon. Each class is supposed to serve a purpose and promote teamwork. Now Assault is very much a run and gun class, which basically makes a COD player feel at home, and you could argue that's a problem. But I noticed that most Battlefield 6 players play the same no matter what class they run. Like, you'll have 100 medics on your team, but none of them seem interested in reviving anyone. They care more about stat padding than playing the objective. And sure, you could argue these are all COD players ruining the game, but it is something even I noticed transitioning from Call of Duty to Battlefield. These dudes have tunnel vision. Sometimes I just want to ask, hey dumbass, you do realize you get more points from playing the objective, right? Like, I genuinely enjoy repairing the tanks as engineer, and I enjoy picking off enemies from a distance with recon if that's the role I chose. It serves as a great change of pace rather than just, dicking around trying to get a high KD like anyone actually cares. I want to play the objective and win, because that's the style of play real Battlefield players stay true to. Now let's shift to the live service. Battle Pass Battlefield coins, drip-fed content, and microtransactions. But not just any microtransactions. I'm talking controversial skins that players feel break the immersion. I'm talking AI-generated slop. Does that sound familiar? Does it sound like Battlefield has taken another page out of Call of Duty's book? I mean, they technically did with the controversial Ghost Mask, but we'll get into that soon. Let's start with the monetization model. Like Call of Duty, Battlefield has continued their Battle Pass model with Battlefield coins, which operate very similar to COD points. You can even buy a pack of Battlefield coins for up to $100, and that costs $30 more than the standard price of the game. But I get it, it's EA, so what do you expect? Although players across the live service gaming industry are tired of the Battle Pass, it's just been accepted at this point honestly. These publishers make too much money off them to stop them. But the real concern lies within the content itself. Arguably, the biggest draw to Battlefield 6 was that it would be staying true to the realistic military theme. It would be as far away from Fortnite and Call of Duty as possible, and at first, it was looking very promising. However, over time, the Battlefield community feels they have been rug pulled on this ever since. For example, the Wicked Grin skin was one that players felt broke the immersion. Its bright blue colors and goofy smile on the mask was taken as a contradiction to the core immersive Battlefield experience. The community was so pissed off about this that they organized a no revive zone protest, meaning whoever was using this skin would not get revived because it felt too cartoony like Call of Duty and Fortnite. As a result of the backlash, EA and DICE quietly removed the skin, and that was that. And now there's a Sith Lord looking skin called Dark Adaptation. I'm pretty sure Star Wars characters shouldn't be playing in what's supposed to be a realistic military shooter, but here we are, I guess. Another example would be the Acid Drip package for the M4A1. It popped up on my screen one game when I earned it, and I was like, okay, that was not actually neon green, I gotta check it out. And when I backed out, sure enough, my eyes were not deceiving me. And then there are the AI slop accusations. The AI slop controversy is all about EA and DICE using AI to create paid cosmetics, which broke another promise from EA. One example being the Objective A skin, which looked eerily similar to the COD Ghost logo. The community accused EA of copying Call of Duty using AI, and believed it served as the perfect symbol of the CODification, where Battlefield was losing its military identity just to copy its biggest rival. But listen, if you're gonna copy anything from Call of Duty, why would you copy the game that marked the end of the franchise? I'm just saying. Also, don't forget the double-barreled rifle in the Wind Chill bundle back in December, and there's a few other examples of these errors. Yes, COD has been heavily criticized for AI slop as well recently, but it's overall just a concerning trend in the AAA industry. You know what else is concerning? The drip feeding of content. We've only gotten like one map per update. The problem with this is if players keep playing the same maps over and over again, it's gonna get old quick. I mean, it's common sense. Battlefield 6 has also been criticized for using vault weapons, like the Scorpion machine pistol as filler content. It's a form of recycling old content rather than creating something new. I mean, look at Black Ops 7. You have the Peacekeeper, the M8A1, and other weapons all from previous Black Ops games. Here's the confusing part though. While EA is only able to give us one map per update and recycle weapons from older games as filler content, they still are able to pump out new bundles to the store pretty damn often. They're also able to lay off hundreds of developers as if they don't have to keep up with their live service model. But this is what happens when a live service game in the AAA industry sells extremely well. The publisher has an excuse to drip feed content and do the bare minimum. Why? Because bestseller achieved, mission accomplished. And sure, it's a business, so EA could care less about what happens once Battlefield 6 sells, as well as it did. But we've seen what happened going from Black Ops 6 to Black Ops 7. BO6 sold well, but the updates sucked. BO7 sold horribly, but it's been updated well because Treyarch needed to in order to keep the little players that they have. And again, like I said earlier, same thing happened with MW2 and MW3 a few years ago. It sucks, but it's just the brutal reality of the AAA industry. And how could we forget about Battle Royale? RedSec released not too long after Battlefield 6, and many players were excited for it. Although COD brought back the classic Verdansk map, Warzone has been drier than ever. So RedSec felt like a fresh alternative to a bunch of Warzone players who were looking for something new and improved. And honestly, it does feel very similar to Warzone, but the destructible environment set it apart so that players can't just camp in buildings like a bunch of rats and get away with it. However, that fresh alternative also posed a major problem that Call of Duty also faced: the prioritization of Battle Royale over multiplayer. Now, many players believe it's ridiculous since Ripple Effect is in charge of RedSec, while DICE is in charge of multiplayer. But again, we've seen this play before. The moment Warzone was introduced to COD fans, it became very apparent what was more important to Activision. Here's what the new model became: make sure the new game sells, prioritize Warzone's development, make sure Battle Pass and store content is accessible to both types of players, and repeat. It started with Modern Warfare 2019 in COD, when the game would release with a limited amount of maps to drip feed maps and weapons across each new season to last the game's live service. And a lot of these maps that are added each season or mid-season are remastered maps, So it's not like the devs are hauling ass to create these maps, and they're still remastering a bunch of them in BO7 from the entire Black Ops series. How else would they be able to keep up with the game's live service? So when Battlefield players see the same pattern happening with Battlefield 6 and RedSec, they're just gonna feel like EA is hopping on a popular trend that chases the profit and not the players. But overall, man, I actually don't think Battlefield is a bad game. I think it's being handled badly by EA. Its launch was about as big and successful as it gets for an FPS game, and it's definitely been a huge breath of fresh air for me to play as a disgruntled COD player. However, there has been a concerning trend with EA's treatment of Battlefield 6, and we just don't want to see it completely codified. Believe me, coming from a COD player, I am rooting for the Battlefield community, and since I've genuinely enjoyed this game and want to see it succeed, I consider myself a part of the newer generation of this community. We all just want Battlefield to stay grounded to its military identity and not end up like Call of Duty. So comment what you think about that, and let me know if I missed any of your concerns that you personally have. But one more thing, feel free to watch this next video on how Battlefield 6 beat Call of Duty. It'll give you a lot more perspective. And feel free to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Thanks for watching, everyone. I am exceptional. There's been one.